What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we've got our Week 1 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all, but with that being said, let's get right into it. Before getting into our breakdown, I want to highlight the sponsor of today's video, OddsJam. OddsJam continues to be the place that I use for all of my sports betting research, from the NFL, NBA, MLB, to daily fantasy and everything in between. But don't just take my word for it. Let me show you firsthand all the amazing tools OddsJam has to offer. Starting with their positive EV tool, which identifies situations where a single sportsbook has mispriced their line compared to the rest of the market. They're basically willing to pay a lot more so that you bet with them compared to the other sportsbook. At the end of the day, you're getting the best odds, essentially a mathematical edge and guaranteed money in the long run. But also available is OddsJam's arbitrage tool, which shows situations where the market is so mispriced that you can bet on both sides and guarantee a risk-free return. OddsJam's calculators show you exactly how much you have to bet on the over and under and what the respective guaranteed risk-free return would be. There's also OddsJam's Sportsbook tool, which consolidates all available market info, over 200 sportsbooks, and provides updates in real time and allows you to see line movement. But my personal favorite is their Fantasy Optimizer tool, which is great for those using PrizePicks, Underdogs, or other daily fantasy sites, as you get to see discrepancies between all of these sportsbooks. Imagine, PrizePicks has a Patrick Mahomes line at 200.5 passing yards, and all other books like FanDuel and Underdog have this line at 230 passing yards. Well, getting the over 200.5 on PrizePicks would be an absolute steal. Guess what? OddsJam does that for you. And the good news is, if you sign up today and use our code PIGSKIN, check the link and promo code in the description of this video, you will get 25% off your first month. OddsJam also has a 7-day free trial, so you get to try before you buy. So don't waste any more time and sign up for OddsJam using our code PIGSKIN today. And we kick off the 2023 season on Thursday with the Lions at the Chiefs. This one isn't the most exciting game in terms of running back fantasy prospects, at least in my opinion. Some people are going to disagree. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously the big name. And, you're going to say, well, you have him as a start, so how can you disagree? The reason I have him as a start is, let me be clear, I think that this Detroit backfield is going to be a running back by committee. And if anything, I think Montgomery is going to start out with the guy having more opportunities. But the reason I have Gibbs as the preferred starter here, purely from a PPR standpoint, I think he's going to see more opportunities to catch some passes here. I think the Lions are going to have to throw the ball more so to keep up with the Chiefs. And I don't think that's going to play up in a positive way for them to have a bunch of rushing attempts. So honestly, if we're just talking about standard formatted leagues, I don't really love any of the Detroit running backs. I think here from the Detroit side of things, you're looking at a low-end running back too, maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling when you factor in PPR, and hopefully it's a shootout. For the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco is the guy that I have at the top right now. Honestly, I don't see him as a high-end fantasy starter, but versus this god-awful Lions defense, I'm willing to give him a chance. I think the Chiefs are going to pull away, and they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit as the game progresses, giving some opportunities for Pacheco. I think probably, honestly, he could rival Jahmyr Gibbs in this game in terms of fantasy production. Then I have Jerick McKinnon as a sit. I know he was kind of a fantasy darling that came out of nowhere for the running back position last year. Was great as a pass-catching running back for the Chiefs, but what I'm worried about, again, if the Chiefs pull away late, they're not going to be dumping the ball off to McKinnon a whole lot. And on top of that, they've added a lot of pass catchers here. Now, whether they're good or not is another question, but at the wide receiver position, things like that. So there's going to be other targets. That's why I'm fading Jerick McKinnon in this game. Then Bengals at the Browns. This one's pretty simple. Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb are good starts here. I much more prefer Nick Chubb. I have him as a top 5 running back, and I think without Kareem Hunt, anything is possible for him this season. Going to be setting career highs potentially across the board. Joe Mixon, I think you're probably looking at a high-end running back too, and it's going to depend on how the game plays out. But other than that, the guys that we have as sits are their backups, the handcuffs. I kind of only listed them here so you know the names. Maybe if you're a Mixon or Chubb owner, Chase Brown and Jerome Ford, guys that you want to potentially stash as handcuffs later on. Then Texans at the Ravens. Here, I'll kick the tires on Dameon Pierce. He's still the number one guy there for the Texans. Yes, they added Devin Singletary, but he wasn't all that impressive during his tenure with the Buffalo Bills. Pierce, he did some nice things last year, but I think game script could be a negative thing here for the Texans. So I'm limiting my kind of excitement for Dameon Pierce, at least in this game. I think he's a mid-level running back too. For the Ravens, I think J.K. Dobbins can have a big game. The Texans defense doesn't scare me. And, sure, Lamar Jackson is the best running back on this team, but he just so happens to play quarterback. I think J.K. Dobbins will have some opportunities as it progresses, as the Ravens pull away. You could even see Gus Edwards maybe vulture a couple opportunities, but I don't think it's going to be that much where you want to throw a dart at Gus Edwards. To me, the top two rushers are going to be Lamar Jackson. J.K. Dobbins kind of has been the case while those two guys have been together. Gus Edwards, again, somebody, if J.K. Dobbins happens to get hurt again, that you kick the tires on then. Afterwards, Bucs at the Vikings. I really only want to start Rachaad White. I think he's going to see a lot of pass catching opportunities. Somebody that is going to have their floor elevated in PPR, scoring. I'm not going to say that he's going to be a high-end running back too. Again, it's going to be game script dependent, especially if Baker Mayfield struggles. I think we're looking probably at a low-end running back too. But you might be shocked to see Alexander Mattison as a sit for me here. The reason I have him as a sit, and yes, I have been chanting Madison's name throughout the offseason. I hate the matchup. The Buccaneers defense, the one thing they do really well is play up front, and I am worried that Madison is going to struggle. The Vikings are just instead going to focus on what they do a little bit better. That's throw the football, and they're not going to just continue to run into a brick wall. If it was any other matchup here for Madison, I would be saying start him, and it might be hard to sit him considering where you might have drafted him, but I just don't love the upside here. The matchup scares me, so I'm leaning towards sitting Madison. Then we go to the Panthers at the Falcons. Here, I'll start the top two guys, Miles Sanders, Bijan Robinson. Miles Sanders didn't play in the preseason, but I've said it before. Panthers paid him. He's the top guy. He's the most versatile. I think he's a high-end running back too here. For the Falcons, Bijan Robinson, the most hyped up rookie running back in a long time. We'll see what happens, how they utilize him, but I'm not really scared by the Panthers defense. And I think in PPR formats, Bijan Robinson will get a lot of opportunities. I think he's probably going to be a low-end running back one for the week, but nonetheless, you drafted him as a first-rounder or early second-rounder. You are starting him. I wouldn't get too cute. Tyler Algier or Cordero Patterson, I think as the season progresses, Bijan Robinson is going to carve out a bigger and bigger role. But those two other guys for me right now, they are sits. It is the Bijan Robinson show in 2023. Then Cardinals at the Commanders. I actually like both sides here. James Conner for the Cardinals. Yes, Kyler Murray won't be playing, but James Conner did all right last year when Murray wasn't available. I think he's going to get, similar to a Rachaad White, a lot of pass catching opportunities. I think he's going to be behind running back 2 here for the Commanders. The Cardinals stink. And even though this is a full-blown running back by committee, I think both Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson will get their opportunities. I think they can both be mid-level or high-end running back 2s, especially if the Commanders pull away in this game. Then Jags at the Colts. I'll start Travis Etienne. The Colts defense doesn't scare me. Tank Bigsby is kind of an interesting name to follow. But to me, again, I'm going to give the chance. And I have the belief in the veteran guy in Etienne. Maybe the younger rusher as the season progresses is somebody that we're going to be talking more about. For the Colts, there's really only one kind of healthy, experienced guy. That's Deion Jackson. I actually, as weird as this sounds, kind of like him more than Travis Etienne. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities here. And he could be a very, very sneaky week 1 start, at least until, the Jonathan Taylor saga blows over or Zach Moss, comes healthy. So I don't know. I actually think Deion Jackson is a very solid start, high-end running back 2 for me. These games, divisional games, typically closer than we might expect. Afterwards, 49ers at the Steelers, only one name. I'm interested in Christian McCaffrey, the number 1 overall running back in fantasy. Either him or Austin Eckler, either way, top 5 running back. However, here on the sits might surprise you. Elijah Mitchell, obviously the backup to McCaffrey. I think in favorable matchups, you can start both McCaffrey and Mitchell. I don't know if this is exactly one of those, so I'm sitting him here. For the Steelers, I would rather sit Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. To me, Najee Harris is going to have a tough outing. Just in general, the rushing attack for the Steelers is going to have a tough outing. And then I think Jalen Warren is going to see a lot of opportunities here, and it's going to be a closer backfield in terms of touches than a lot of people anticipate. So I don't love this game for the Steelers in terms of their running backs. I would sit both of them. Then Titans at the Saints. I'll start Derrick Henry. That's easy enough in standard formats, top 5 running back. Let's move on. That's the easy part. Saints, Jamal Williams with Alvin Kamara out. Jamal Williams is going to be the main guy. Kendre Miller, young guy, rookie. I don't think the Saints are going to trust him with a huge workload just yet. To me, it's going to be Jamal Williams. And I think Williams, similar to what we saw when DeAndre Swift was hurt with the Lions, can bring some decent value, like mid-level, high-end running back 2 upside, even if he doesn't score a bunch of touchdowns. So I actually don't mind the top 2 guys in this game. Moving on, Raiders at the Broncos. I only want to start Josh Jacobs here. He finally figured out his issue with the franchise tag, so he's going to play great. I think he's going to be a borderline top 10 running back on the week. But I do think he will kind of regress compared to last year. For the Broncos, I don't want to start any of these guys. The Raiders defense doesn't scare me, but right now, I just am really curious how the Broncos are going to entrust Javonte Williams. I don't think that he's going to have a good 2023, just too big of an injury to come back from. And I think Samaje Perine is going to be more involved than people believe. So for that reason, I would rather sit both of them. I want to see what happens in week 1, the utilization, before we kind of have a firm picture of this one. Then we go to the Eagles at the Patriots. I'm only starting Ramondre Stevenson here from the side of the New England Patriots. Yes, I know they added Ezekiel Elliott, and that's going to limit the upside for Ramondre, but I still think he's obviously the running back to own. I see him as a mid to high-end running back 2 compared to last year. So again, value not quite as large, but in full PPR scoring, he does get a little bit of a bump. Ezekiel Elliott, he's nothing more than a guy that's going to be vulturing touchdowns in my opinion. So I have him as a sit for Philly. Too many names here. That's what it boils down to. DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Gainwell. On top of that, Jalen Hurts. I would rather sit all of them. I think it's going to be a revolving door here at the running back position. So for fantasy purposes, I really don't like this backfield. Afterwards, Rams at the Seahawks. I'm only giving Kenneth Walker the start here. I think he's going to be in the mid-level running back 2 range. I don't know how much Zach Charbonnet is going to be involved. So that's, again, something we have to monitor. I feel like the Seahawks, they're not afraid to do a running back by committee. Look at last year. Look at years prior. For the Rams, I just don't love that offense, potentially without Cooper Kupp. And then with Akers, sure, he was doing all right at the end of last year. But, I think that there's been reports that Kyron Williams is going to be more involved than people, again, believe. And that offensive line scares me. There's a lot of issues here. I want to get out of week 1, see who was given the nod, who the Rams like more before saying, okay, Cam Akers is an every week start, for example. Then Dolphins at the Chargers. I'll start Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson is hurt, so it's Mostert and the rookie. But I have the rookie Akane as a sit for now. I just think that, the Dolphins are going to give the veteran guy the more opportunities to begin with. I have Mostert, though, as a high-end running back 2 for the week. Then for the Chargers, Austin Eckler, going to be a top 5 running back every single week, especially in full PPR scoring. It's as simple as that. Moving on, Packers at the Bears. I'll start Aaron Jones. He's really the only running back I want to start here. I think he has the higher pass-catching upside compared to A.J. Dillon, but I do think it's pretty much a running back by committee, and without Aaron Rodgers, this offense is going to struggle compared to last year, so I'm really not as high on these Packers running backs as a lot of other people. I think Aaron Jones is probably going to be a boom or bust guy, similar to A.J. Dillon every single week, but you're hoping in PPR formats, kind of low-end running back 2 because of pass-catching ability. Then for the Bears, it's as simple as this. The Packers, sure, they don't scare me, but the Bears have too many guys right now. You could argue they have 3 dudes that could potentially be the RB1. Khalil Herbert, Deonta Foreman, and Roschon Johnson. And on top of that, Justin Fields is going to lead this entire offense in terms of rushing yards. So, again, I want to see how these Bears running backs are used first. and then we can comment on it after week 1. But for now, I think it's going to be too tough to decide, and I just don't love the upside for any of them at this point in time. Afterwards, Giants at the Cowboys. Pretty simple. You start Saquon Barkley, you start Tony Pollard, both going to be top 10 running backs on the week. Tony Pollard has been freed from Ezekiel Elliott, and that is a good thing. Saquon Barkley, sure, he's going to get vultured by Daniel Jones from time to time, but he's still a top 10 guy. Let's move on. And then Bills at the Jets. I really want to start James Cook here. I'll be honest with you guys. I think he's going to be given some opportunities to kick this thing off. No more Devin Singletary. He's shown the upside. I think he's going to be a mid-level running back too here. I think it's going to be a lot of scoring that we see here. Yes, Damian Harris was added, but he's not much of a pass catcher. I'm not all that worried about him. I have him as a sit for the Jets. You have two guys right now. You've got Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. I refuse to start either one of these guys in fantasy football as long as they are both seeing the field. If there's an injury, which you could argue there is one to Breece Hall coming off an ACL from last year, but if there's a new one here to either Dalvin or Breece Hall, only then will I contemplate starting one of these guys or another name in this backfield. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a running back by committee, and I am just not interested. But with that, we wrap up our week 1 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comments section any questions you guys might have. We will do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.